Imagine for a moment that you are standing in the fading light of a Roman evening. The year could be the 2nd century after Christ, though the exact date hardly matters. Rome is vast, sprawling, and filled with sound. Yet here, in the gentle dusk, the noises soften. You hear sandals on stone paving, the muted rumble of carts rolling homeward, and the distant splash of a fountain playing somewhere behind an ivy-covered wall. The air smells faintly of dust, olive oil, and wood smoke from 100 kitchens preparing their evening meals. A cool breeze comes off the Tiber, carrying with it the murmur of people winding down from their day. And just ahead of you rises the facade of one of the great Roman bathhouses. It is not a small building, not something you would stumble past without noticing. Bathhouses, or thermae as they were called, were among the grandest of public works in the Roman world. Even in a modest town, the bath might be the most impressive structure after the temple. In a great city like Rome, the complexes could rival palaces, stretching across entire city blocks, with soaring walls of brick and concrete faced in marble. Tonight, the lamps are already being lit. Their glow flickers along the great archways at the entrance, where mosaics of sea creatures glimmer faintly in the low light. Dolphins, tritons, shells, and curling waves decorate the thresholds, reminding all who enter that this is a place of water, of cleansing, of ritual comfort. You pause at the steps, where others are already arriving. Men in simple tunics, dusty from the day's labor. Wealthier citizens in clean white togas, drawn here after an afternoon in the forum. A few slaves carry baskets, towels, jars of oil, and Strigel's curved metal scrapers used to clean the skin. Everyone is here for the same purpose: to wash away the day, to refresh the body, and to pass the evening in warmth and quiet. The bathhouse doorways are tall enough to impress, though not so grand as to intimidate. You step through into a vestibule where the air immediately changes. Outside, the air was dry and touched by evening chill. Inside, it is warmer, carrying a soft dampness that clings faintly to the skin. The soundscape shifts too. You hear the low murmur of voices bouncing gently from the walls, the shuffle of sandals across mosaic floors, and the splash of water from deep within the building. The vestibule leads to the appetitorium, the changing hall. But for now, you pause. The first impression is worth lingering over. Imagine standing in a wide space, the ceiling high above you, supported by arches and decorated with painted frescoes. They may be simple scenes of vines and flowers, or grand depictions of gods: Neptune with his trident, Venus rising from the waves, Apollo guiding the sun. The walls might be faced with colored plaster, reds and ochres and blues, or tiled in small squares of glass and stone that catch the lamplight. Around the edges of the hall are niches, each one serving as a storage cubby for clothing and sandals. Slaves stand ready to watch over the belongings of wealthier patrons, though poorer citizens must trust to luck and to the eyes of their friends. In some bathhouses, you might see wooden benches set along the walls, or low stone ledges where bathers sit to remove their shoes. There is no hurry. People come and go steadily, the rhythm of the baths as predictable as the turning of day into night. A man unlaces his sandals slowly, stretching his tired feet. Another folds his tunic and sets it carefully in a niche. Children chatter quietly as they follow their parents, their eyes wide at the echoing halls. The architecture itself invites calm. Roman engineers knew how to build for effect as much as for function. The ceilings rise high, drawing the eye upward, reminding the visitor of the vastness of the space. The materials are chosen for durability, but also for beauty: marble, plaster, painted stucco, polished stone. Even here, in the changing hall, where people are busy with simple tasks, there is dignity. You take a seat on a bench, feeling the cool stone beneath you. You remove your sandals, the soles dusty from the road, and place them aside. You slip off your tunic, folding it with care. If you were a wealthy Ramon, a slave might assist you, holding out a clean towel or a small flask of perfumed oil. If you were of more modest means, you would carry only what you needed: a cloth, a jar of olive oil, perhaps a strigil to scrape away the sweat of the day. The hall smells faintly of oil, warm skin, and damp plaster. Not unpleasant, simply human. It is the smell of many people together, preparing for the same ritual. The acoustics of the hall soften the voices, turning conversations into a low, steady hum. It is not silence, but it is restful. From here, you look ahead to the doorway that leads deeper into the bath. Beyond lies the sequence of rooms that every bather will follow. The tepidarium, the warm room. The caldarium, the hot chamber with its steaming pools. The frigidarium, the cool plunge where the body is refreshed. Perhaps even the natatio, the great open-air swimming pool found in the larger complexes. But before you move on, you linger. That is the point of this story. After all, to linger, to notice details, to let the pace of the Roman evening slow your own heartbeat. Consider, for example, the floor beneath your feet. It is not plain stone, but mosaic, patterned in geometric designs or perhaps in a scene of sea life. Small tesserae, tiny cubes of colored stone and glass, carefully arranged to create an image that will last centuries. Every step you take across, it connects you, however faintly, to the artistry of Roman craftsmen. Or consider the faint vibration beneath the soles of your feet. Deep below the floor runs the hypocaust system, an underfloor heating network of brick pillars and flues that carry warm air from furnaces outside the building. Even here, in the entrance hall, the floor may feel just slightly warm to the touch, a promise of the heat that lies ahead. The hypocaust is one of Rome's great innovations, and it is what makes the bathhouse possible. Without it, the caldarium could never hold its searing heat, nor the tepidarium its soothing warmth. Beneath you, slaves tend the furnaces, feeding them with wood and charcoal, ensuring that the system runs without pause. Their labor is invisible, but it is what allows the comfort above. As you sit in the appetiterium, you might reflect on the sheer scale of the bathhouse enterprise. This is not a private luxury, but a public service. In Rome itself, great emperors such as Caracalla and Diocletian built baths that could hold thousands of visitors at once. Even in a smaller town, the local thermae is a place where all classes mingle. Senators and shopkeepers, soldiers and freedmen all come to the baths. It is a leveling ground, a place where everyone shares the same water, the same heat, the same air. The evening draws on. Outside, the streets grow darker, the torches along the main roads casting small halos of light. Inside, the bathhouse glows softly, with oil lamps set in niches along the walls. The flicker of their flames reflects on polished marble, sending shifting patterns across the ceiling. Shadows move gently with each step, but the light is constant enough to make one feel safe. You rise from the bench and take up your small towel and flask of oil. Your belongings are tucked away, and you are ready to enter. The doorway to the tepidarium awaits. Its arch is broad, framed in decorated plaster, the air that seeps through it noticeably warmer. You take a step forward and feel the temperature change, a slow embrace of warmth that promises relief. But before you pass through, you look back once more at the changing hall. It is not dramatic. Nothing here is meant to overwhelm. It is simply the threshold, the first stage in an experience that has repeated for centuries, for millions of Romans day after day. And yet, in its simplicity, there is comfort. You are no longer part of the noisy street outside. You are inside a place where the pace is measured, where the rituals are known, where the purpose is clear, to cleanse, to relax, to restore. And with that thought, you step forward, leaving the appetiterium behind. Ahead lies the tepidarium, the warm heart of the baths, where the evening's journey will truly begin. You step forward, leaving behind the changing hall, and at once the architecture seems to guide your body into a slower rhythm. Roman builders were masters of space, and every threshold in a bathhouse was designed with intention. The ceilings rise and fall like the inhale and exhale of breath, and each new chamber has its own temperature, its own sound, and its own light. The sequence is not accidental. A Roman bath is a journey. It leads you from the cooler, public threshold spaces into the warmth of the inner chambers, then to the height of heat and steam, before cooling you again in water drawn fresh and cold. The process is as much ritual as function, and the layout of the building reflects this careful balance. The first proper room you enter, after the apoditerium, is the tepidarium, the warm chamber. The doorway is framed in stone, the arch rising above you, and the moment you step through it, you feel the change. The air is warmer, gentler on the skin, carrying the faint scent of damp plaster and heated stone. This is not the scorching heat of the caldarium that will come later. Instead, the tepidarium welcomes you with a steady, even warmth, the kind that seeps into your muscles and eases the tension of the day. The room itself is beautiful, though the beauty is subtle. The walls are often plastered and painted with frescoes, delicate vines, birds perched among branches, geometric patterns repeating in quiet rhythm. In some baths, the tepidarium might be faced with marble slabs, veined white or rose-colored, polished to a gentle sheen. Oil lamps set in niches cast a golden light that reflects off the surfaces, softening the outlines and giving everything a faint glow. The ceiling is domed, and from that dome hangs condensation, droplets forming slowly and falling in silence to the floor. You notice that the air is moist, but not oppressive. Roman engineers had perfected the art of maintaining temperature. Beneath the floor, the hypocaust system carries heated air, warming the room evenly. Flues built into the walls allow heat to rise, so that every surface radiates a steady, enveloping warmth. At the center of the tepidarium, there may be a low basin of warm water, shallow and still, reflecting the lamps in small ripples. But the main purpose of this room is not bathing, but transition. It prepares the body, softens the skin, and allows the mind to adjust from the coolness of the outer hall to the intensity of the inner chambers. You walk slowly across the mosaic floor, each step echoing faintly. Around you, other bathers sit on benches built into the walls, some in quiet conversation, others simply resting with eyes half closed. The sound is hushed here, as though the warmth itself has softened the voices. After a time, you rise again and move toward the doorway that leads to the next stage. You pass under an arch framed with carved stone, simple, functional, but dignified. Ahead lies the caldarium, the hot chamber. The moment you approach, you feel the difference. Heat radiates from the doorway itself, and as you step through, it envelops you fully. The caldarium is the heart of the bathhouse, the place of fire and steam. Its floor is heated from beneath, its walls glowing with warmth. The air is thick, heavy with vapor. This room is larger, its ceiling high and vaulted, designed to hold the rising steam without suffocating the bathers. Along the walls are deep basins of hot water, some small and intimate, others broad enough to hold several people at once. The water shimmers in the lamplight, its surface broken occasionally by a ripple as someone shifts or slips into the pool. The sound here is different. It is the hiss of steam escaping, the splash of water being stirred, the occasional sigh as a body lowers into the heat. Conversations are fewer, quieter still. The caldarium is demanding. Its heat insists on attention, on surrender. You move to the edge of one of the basins and dip your hand into the water. It is hot, but not unbearable. Just enough to make the skin prickle, just enough to awaken the circulation. You imagine lowering yourself into it, feeling the weight of the day dissolve in the liquid warmth. At one end of the caldarium is the labrum, a large marble basin filled with cool water. Its purpose is balance. After sweating in the hot air or soaking in the pool, A bather might stand before the labrum and splash cool water over the body, easing the intensity, restoring calm. The marble is smooth beneath the hand, its rim worn faintly by centuries of touch. You linger here, not rushing. The caldarium is the climax of the sequence, the place where the body is most alive, pores open, muscles soften. But you know that the Roman bath is not meant to end in heat. To complete the ritual, you must pass through the final chamber, the frigidarium. The doorway is narrower, and as you step through, the air changes abruptly. The frigidarium is cool, almost cold compared to the caldarium. The suddenness of it is striking, and it brings with it a sense of clarity, as though the mind has been sharpened. This room is spacious, often one of the most architecturally impressive. High vaulted ceilings soar overhead, their surfaces decorated with coffered patterns or painted frescoes. Large windows, set high in the walls, allow light to enter, so that the frigidarium often glows with a soft, natural illumination. At the center of the room is the cold plunge, a deep pool lined with marble. Its water is clear and still, reflecting the ceiling above. Around the edges, steps lead down into the basin. Some bathers descend quickly, plunging into the chill, emerging with gasps and laughter. Others take their time, lowering themselves slowly, letting the coolness creep over the skin inch by inch. The sound here is sharper than in the tepidarium or caldarium. It is the sudden splash of water, the intake of breath, the sharper voices of people refreshed. Yet even so, the atmosphere is calm. The frigidarium is a place of renewal, of awakening. After the heat of the caldarium, the cold water restores balance, closes the pores, and steadies the heartbeat. In larger bathhouses, the frigidarium might also serve as a social hub. Benches line the walls, where people sit and talk, their bodies cooled and refreshed. In some complexes, there are even libraries or small lecture halls attached to the frigidarium, so that the transition from physical refreshment to intellectual engagement is seamless. And then, beyond these three main chambers, tepidarium, caldarium, frigidarium, lie other spaces, each with their own purpose. The palestra, the open courtyard for exercise, where men wrestle, throw weights, or practice ball games. The natatio, a great open-air swimming pool, its surface reflecting the sky, its colonnades framing the horizon. The sudatorium, a dry sweating room, similar to a modern sauna. The unchorium, where bathers are anointed with oil and scraped clean with strigils. Each space is arranged with thought, with order. The bathhouse is a miniature world, a city within the city, where everything needed for the care of the body and the leisure of the mind is contained. The architecture is not only functional, but symbolic. The sequence of rooms mirrors a cycle, from cool to warm to hot, then back to cool again. It is a rhythm, a balance, a movement from tension to release, from activity to rest. The walls and arches, the floors and ceilings, all work together to guide the body and mind through this rhythm. You pause now in the frigidarium, the cool air settling around you, the water in the pool still rippling faintly from a recent splash. Above, the high ceiling seems distant, painted with scenes of gods or adorned with geometric patterns that repeat into the distance. It is easy to imagine time slowing here, to imagine hours passing without urgency, without pressure. The bathhouse does not hurry you. It receives you, holds you, and restores you. Its architecture is not just stone and mortar, but an invitation to rest, to cleanse, to find balance. And so you linger, breathing slowly, listening to the gentle echoes of water and voices. The rooms of the bathhouse surround you like a carefully woven fabric, each thread supporting the next, each space flowing into the other. When you are ready, you will move on. There are details still to notice, the textures of the materials, the scents of oils and herbs, the quiet rituals of bathing itself. But for now, it is enough simply to rest in the knowledge of the place, to feel its design settle into you like the steady beat of a heart. The Romain bath is not just a building. It is an experience, one that begins with stone and water, but ends with calm. The Tepidarium is not a room you rush through. It is a chamber designed for lingering, for transition, for softening the edges of the day. You cross its threshold slowly, and immediately you notice the quality of the air. It is warmer than the changing hall you have left behind, yet gentler than the intense heat of the caldarium that waits ahead. The temperature is steady, a calm embrace, as if the very walls have learned how to hold warmth. The Romans understood the importance of gradual change. To plunge the body suddenly from cold into heat, or from heat into cold, was thought to be unhealthy, even dangerous. So the Tepidarium was created as a kind of mediator. It stands between extremes, offering a balance that eases the body into the bathing ritual. The floor beneath your feet is paved with mosaic. Tiny tesserae of colored stone and glass are arranged into intricate designs, perhaps geometric patterns, repeating in quiet symmetry, or scenes from mythology, where gods and heroes appear in soft, faded outlines. Each step carries you across a story laid into the very surface of the room. Beneath that floor, hidden from sight, is the hypocaust. A network of raised pillars supports the slabs of stone, leaving space for hot air to circulate. Furnaces at the edge of the complex, stoked with wood and charcoal, send their heat into these chambers. The result is a steady, radiant warmth that rises through the floor into the room above. You can almost imagine the path of the heat. Glowing embers turning to flame, air rushing through hidden passages, warmth seeping upward through stone. It is an invisible presence, a reminder of the labor required to maintain comfort. Somewhere outside this chamber, men known as fornicatores tend the furnaces, shoveling fuel into the fire, adjusting the flow of air, ensuring that the bathhouse remains perfectly tempered. The walls of the Tepidarium are painted, the plaster smooth and cool to the touch, despite the warmth of the air. Frescoes bloom across the surfaces. Delicate vines winding upward, birds perched on branches, clusters of grapes, garlands of leaves. The colors have softened with age, yet they still carry a quiet richness: reds, ochres, soft blues, and greens. From the ceiling above, small drops of condensation fall at intervals, striking the floor with the faintest sound. The dome or vault of the room gathers the moisture, then releases it in slow rhythm, like the ticking of a clock. Around the perimeter of the chamber, stone benches are built into the walls. Bathers recline here, some wrapped in towels, others already glistening with oil. A few converse in low voices, their words softened by the acoustics of the room, so that you hear only the murmur of syllables without their meaning. Others close their eyes and simply rest, letting the warmth seep into their limbs. You notice how the Tepidarium encourages stillness. Unlike the palestra, where bodies move and exercise, or the caldarium, where heat demands a quickened pulse, the Tepidarium asks for patience. It is the room of adjustment, the room of pause. You sit on one of the benches. The stone beneath you is warm, heated not only by the air, but by the bodies that have rested there before. The warmth spreads into your muscles, loosening them, and you feel your shoulders drop a little, your breath lengthen. In some bathhouses, a shallow basin of warm water is set in the center of the Tepidarium. Its surface gleams under the light of oil lamps, faint ripples moving when someone dips a hand or foot into it. The basin is not for full immersion, but for gradual acclimatization. You imagine reaching your fingers into the water, feeling its softness, the warmth radiating through the skin. The lighting in the Tepidarium is gentle. Small clay lamps rest in niches carved into the walls, their flames steady, their glow reflected in the polished surfaces of marble or mosaic. In some places, thin sheets of translucent alabaster are fitted into the windows, allowing daylight to filter through with a golden haze. Nothing here is harsh. Everything is softened. The scent of the Tepidarium is distinct. It is the mingling of warm plaster, damp stone, and the faint traces of oils carried in on the skin of bathers. Olive oil mixed with herbs, rosemary, lavender, myrtle, and sometimes imported spices like cinnamon or cardamom adds a subtle fragrance to the air. It is not overwhelming, but it lingers, weaving itself into memory. Time in the Tepidarium has no urgency. You might remain here for minutes or for an hour, allowing the body to adjust. Some bathers prepare for the hotter caldarium by gently massaging their limbs, applying a thin layer of oil that will protect the skin and make later cleansing easier. Others use Strigel's curved bronze tools to scrape away sweat and dust from the surface of the skin. The soundscape is soothing in its variety. A quiet cough, a low chuckle, the distant drip of water, the faint shuffle of sandals against the mosaic floor. Every sound is softened by the warmth, as though the air itself cushions the edges. As you sit, you reflect on the purpose of this room. It is not merely functional, it is philosophical. The Romans believed in moderation, in balance, in the steady movement between extremes. The Tepidarium embodies that belief. It teaches the body how to shift gradually, how to find equilibrium. You close your eyes for a moment, and the warmth becomes almost tactile, like a blanket draped around you. You imagine the centuries of people who have sat here before you, citizens, soldiers, merchants, philosophers, each of them passing through the same ritual, each of them surrendering to the same gentle heat. The Tepidarium holds their echoes. It is a place where time overlaps, where the past feels close. When you open your eyes again, the room has not changed. The lamps still glow. The frescoes still watch from the walls. The warmth still surrounds you, steady and unyielding. But you feel altered, softened, prepared for what comes next. At last, you rise from the bench. Your body feels looser, lighter. You walk slowly toward the doorway that leads onward to the caldarium. Already you can sense the difference. The air ahead is thicker, more humid, carrying with it the promise of heat. But for a moment longer, you pause on the threshold, looking back at the Tepidarium. The chamber glows in its quiet light, its warmth held steady like a heartbeat. And you know that when you think of Roman baths, it is this room, the calm, the balance, the gentle preparation that will stay with you most of all. The doorway to the caldarium stands before you like the threshold of another world. Even before you pass beneath its arch, you feel the air changing. It presses against your skin, heavier, thicker, warmer. The Tepidarium has been a gentle introduction, a warm embrace, but here lies the intensity, the furnace at the heart of the thermi. You take a slow step forward. The air grows moist. Another step, and the light changes to softer, hazier, blurred by the steam that hangs in the chamber. Finally, you cross fully inside, and the caldarium surrounds you. The heat is immediate, almost startling. It rises from the floor, radiates from the walls, hovers in the very air you breathe. Your skin tingles. Your chest feels the heaviness of vapor. Your senses sharpen as though responding to the challenge of the environment. Yet within moments, your body adjusts, and what first felt overwhelming begins to feel deeply soothing. The architecture of the caldarium is grand but purposeful. The ceiling is high and vaulted, designed to gather the steam without suffocating those within. The walls are lined with marble slabs, their surfaces warm to the touch, their colors whites, grays, sometimes veined with reds or greens, softened by a film of condensation. Small windows sit high above, letting in daylight that filters through the mist in pale shafts, illuminating particles of vapor that drift like slow-moving smoke. Beneath the floor, the hypocaust system is at work again, but here its presence is strongest. The suspended floor rests upon hundreds of small brick pillars, each creating a channel for hot air to flow. Fires in the furnaces burn steadily, sending heat beneath your feet, into the walls, and up into the chamber itself. You are standing on stone, warmed not by the sun, but by fire hidden deep below. The caldarium contains several features, each designed for a specific part of the bathing ritual. The largest is the hot water basin, often set along one side of the room. Its edges are lined with smooth marble, and wide steps descend into its depths. Steam rises from its surface in shifting clouds, carrying with it the scent of heated mineral water. The sound of droplets condensing and falling back into the pool punctuates the quiet, as though the room itself is breathing. Beside this large basin, smaller tubs are often arranged, some for soaking, some for splashing water onto the body, others filled with cooler water for quick relief. The Romans valued variety, and the caldarium offers choices: deep immersion, shallow rinsing, standing near the labrum for a sudden burst of refreshment. The labrum is one of the most distinctive features of the caldarium. A large circular basin, carved from marble, filled with cold water, it stands elevated upon a pedestal. Bathers emerge from the hot pools and stand before it, dipping hands or scooping water over their heads, the sudden contrast sending a shock of clarity through their systems. The marble surface of the labrum gleams with droplets, its edges smooth by the touch of countless hands. You move closer to the main pool. The steam thickens as you approach, curling around your face, dampening your hair. The water shimmers faintly, its surface broken only by ripples where others have moved. Bathers descend the marble steps slowly, pausing as the water climbs higher along their legs, their bodies adjusting to the heat. Some lower themselves quickly, eager for the immersion. Others ease into it inch by inch, savoring the gradual rise of warmth. At last, you too place a foot into the pool. The heat flows over you, prickling at first, then melting into comfort. You descend another step, then another, until the water rises to your waist, then your chest. When you finally submerge, the sensation is total. The hot water holds you, its weight pressing against every part of you, its warmth seeping into muscles, joints, and bones. You lean back against the smooth marble edge, closing your eyes. Around you, voices are muffled by the steam. A man sighs as he lowers himself fully into the basin. Another splashes water across his shoulders. Somewhere in the chamber, a few bathers murmur in quiet conversation, but the heat dulls even their speech, slowing it, softening it. The caldarium is not only for relaxation, but also for cleansing. After sitting in the pool or sweating in the heated air, many bathers rise to be scraped with strigils. A friend, servant, or attendant might oil their skin first, massaging the limbs with olive oil mixed with herbs, then drawing the curved bronze blade across the surface. Sweat, oil, and impurities are removed, leaving the skin smooth and refreshed. The process is practical, but also ritualistic, a symbolic shedding of the day's labor and dust. The air is filled with layers of scent. There is the mineral tong of hot water, the faint smokiness of the fires that fuel the hypocaust, and the sweetness of oil's lavender, chamomile, perhaps a hint of exotic resins like myrrh or frankincense brought from distant provinces. Together, they create an aroma that is both earthy and refined, grounding yet elevated. Your body begins to sweat, the pores opening in response to the heat. Each drop mingles with the water, disappearing without notice. You feel lighter, cleansed, as though the burdens of the outside world are slipping away with each breath of warm vapor. The soundscape is minimal but immersive. The drip of condensation from the ceiling, the occasional splash of water as someone enters or leaves the basin, the hiss of steam escaping from a small vent. Every sound is softened, blurred by the mist. After some time, minutes or perhaps longer, you rise slowly from the pool. The water clings to your skin, then trickles down in warm rivulets. You stand for a moment in the heated air, then move toward the labrum. Its marble gleams before you, filled with water drawn cool from the aqueduct. You dip your hands into it. The contrast is startling, the coolness cutting through the heat. You lift the water to your face, splash it across your forehead and cheeks. The sensation is immediate. Clarity, refreshment, balance. You splash again, this time letting the water cascade down your neck and shoulders. The body responds with a shiver, then steadies. The Romans valued this moment, the sudden shift that awakened the senses, invigorated the spirit. Some bathers linger here, alternating between the hot basin and the labrum, savoring the rhythm of contrast. Others recline on benches, letting their bodies sweat freely in the heated air before rinsing themselves with cool water. Each follows the ritual in their own way, but all are drawn into the same cycle: heat, release, refreshment. You find a seat along the wall, the stone warm beneath you. The air is still thick, but your body has grown accustomed to it now. You breathe slowly, steadily, each inhale carrying warmth deep into your chest, each exhale releasing tension. The caldarium is a place of surrender. Its heat does not allow for haste or distraction. It demands that you slow down, that you listen to your body, that you yield to the rhythm of warmth and breath. In this way, it is not only physical, but meditative. You look upward toward the vaulted ceiling. Through the haze of steam, you see faint patterns, perhaps painted frescoes, perhaps carved coffering. The light from the high windows catches in the mist, creating halos that shift as you move your gaze. It feels almost otherworldly, as though you are suspended between earth and sky. The Romans understood that the bath was not merely about hygiene. It was about health in the broadest sense: the body, the mind, the spirit. The caldarium, with its intensity, played a vital role in this philosophy. It purged the body of impurities, opened the skin, relaxed the muscles. But it also offered a space for reflection, for release, for a kind of rebirth. When at last you prepare to leave the caldarium, you do so slowly, reluctantly. You step from the warmth of the basin, water streaming down your body, and cross the floor toward the next doorway. Beyond lies the frigidarium, where coolness waits, where balance will be restored. But before you leave, you pause once more to look back. The room glows softly in the mist, figures half hidden, the labrum gleaming like a small moon at its center. You carry with you the memory of the heat, the deep, penetrating warmth that has loosened your muscles, cleared your skin, and slowed your mind. The caldarium has done its work. You are cleansed, softened, renewed. And so, step by step, you walk toward the threshold, ready for the cool embrace of the next chamber. You leave the caldarium slowly, your skin still warm, glistening with droplets of hot water and sweat. As you pass beneath the archway, you notice the air beginning to change again. The heaviness of the steam thins out. Each breath feels lighter, clearer, cooler. Step by step, the environment shifts until you cross fully into the frigidarium. The contrast is immediate, though not harsh. After the dense warmth of the caldarium, this room feels expansive, airy, and fresh. The temperature drops noticeably, but it is not freezing. Your skin tightens, pores contracting, muscles responding to the sudden change. The frigidarium is one of the most architecturally striking spaces in the bath complex. It is often the largest chamber, built to impress as much as to refresh. The ceiling rises high above, vaulted or domed, sometimes painted with frescoes of mythological scenes, sometimes coffered in geometric patterns that play with the light. The walls are clad in marble panels of many colors: white, green, red, black, each polished to a smooth shine. Decorative mosaics line the floors, their intricate designs visible beneath the clear surface of shallow water. At the center of the room, or along one side, lies the great cold water pool. Rectangular or circular, it is broad and deep enough for many bathers to submerge at once. Marble steps descend into its depths, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of bare feet. The water gleams with a faint bluish tint, reflecting the light from clear-story windows high above. Unlike the steamy basins of the caldarium, the frigidarium's pool lies still, calm, a mirror to the grandeur of the chamber itself. You approach the edge of the pool. The air here is cooler still, carrying with it the faint mineral tang of fresh water. This water has traveled far drawn through aqueducts, filtered through settling tanks, stored in cisterns, and finally delivered here to the bathhouse. It is pure, replenished regularly, and kept cold by both design and environment. Some baths even incorporated underground channels or shaded reservoirs to ensure the water remained refreshingly brisk. Bathers gather along the poolside. Some linger, hesitating before stepping in, bracing themselves for the sudden chill. Others plunge directly, the splash echoing off marble walls, the ripples spreading outward. A few sit on the steps, lowering themselves slowly, inch by inch, until the water reaches their shoulders. You sit at the edge for a moment, letting your feet dangle into the water. The coolness climbs up from your toes, shocking at first, then strangely soothing. The water rises up your legs, your torso, your chest. When it reaches your shoulders, you pause, then finally dip your head beneath the surface. The sensation is profound. After the heat of the caldarium, the cold water seems to awaken every nerve at once. Your skin tightens. Your heart quickens slightly. Your breath sharpens. Yet within moments, the body begins to adjust. What was at first startling becomes bracing, clarifying. The Romans believed this contrast sealed the benefits of the bath, opening the body with heat and closing and strengthening it with cold. Around you, other bathers experience the same. A young man emerges from the water, shaking droplets from his hair, his face lit with a smile of invigoration. An older bather reclines along the pool steps, the coolness easing sore joints. Children splash in the shallower corners, their laughter echoing softly in the lofty chamber. The frigidarium is a place of both calm and liveliness, a communal refreshment after the meditative stillness of the caldarium. The water itself is remarkable in its clarity. Through it, you can see the mosaics beneath patterns of fish, dolphins, sea monsters, and geometric shapes. These images shimmer and distort with each ripple, as though the designs are alive, moving with the currents. To bathe here is not merely to cool the body, but to enter into an aesthetic experience, surrounded by art, architecture, and the mastery of Roman engineering. Along the sides of the chamber, benches are arranged for those who wish to sit and cool in the air rather than the water. The marble is cool to the touch, polished and smooth. From these seats, one can gaze upon the grandeur of the chamber, watch the play of light upon water, and listen to the softened echoes of splashes and voices. The soundscape of the frigidarium is distinct from the other rooms. Gone is the muffled hush of the tepidarium, gone the hiss of steam in the caldarium. Here, the air carries sound more clearly. Splashes ring out, laughter and conversation rise and fall. Footsteps echo across stone floors. Yet the size of the chamber disperses the noise, softening it into a gentle chorus. You swim a short length across the pool. The coolness steadies your breath, slows your movements, and sharpens your mind. With each stroke, you feel your body balancing, finding equilibrium after the intensity of the hot rooms. This was the Roman intention, not merely comfort, but balance, a restoration of harmony within the body's systems. After some time in the water, you climb the marble steps once more. Droplets run down your skin, cool in the open air. You sit on a bench, letting the water evaporate naturally, a process drawing additional warmth from your body, deepening the sense of refreshment. The frigidarium was often the concluding chamber in the bathing cycle. For many Romans, this was the final step before leaving the baths, their bodies cleansed, invigorated, and renewed. Yet some would linger, enjoying the cold pool for long stretches, swimming, conversing, or simply reclining in the coolness. The architecture encouraged this lingering. Light pours in from high windows, illuminating the chamber in a soft glow. The marble surfaces, the mosaics, the vaults all combine to create an atmosphere of dignity and grandeur. It is as much a civic space as a bathing room, a place where citizens of all ranks might mingle, united by the shared experience of water and stone. Your eyes trace the details. A mosaic dolphin leaps across a field of blue tesserae. A marble statue of a river god reclines at the pool's edge, his urn pouring an eternal stream of carved water. Columns rise in orderly rows, their capitals carved with acanthus leaves, their shafts reflecting faintly in the pool below. Everywhere you look, the artistry reinforces the sense that this is not merely hygiene, but culture, philosophy, and identity embodied in architecture. Eventually, you feel the coolness settle deep into your body. Muscles that had loosened in the calderaarium now feel firm, refreshed, steady. Your mind, once slowed by the heat, is clear, calm, and alert. This is the Roman secret. Not one temperature, not one sensation, but the deliberate progression through contrasts warmth to heat, heat to cold, each chamber preparing you for the next. You rise from the bench, water droplets still clinging to your skin, and walk slowly across the mosaic floor. At the far side of the frigidarium lies another doorway, leading onward to other spaces of the bathhouse, the palestra for exercise, the sudatorium for sweating, or perhaps the appetiterium where your garments wait. The cycle can end here or continue further, depending on your will. But for now, you pause. You glance back at the pool, at the play of light upon its surface, at the calm figures drifting within it. You feel the coolness still lingering in your body, balancing the deep warmth of the calderaeum before it. You carry this balance with you, knowing that the frigidarium has sealed the experience, completed the cycle, and restored you to yourself. You take one last steady breath of the cool air, and then, step by step, you move toward the next part of the therme. Leaving the frigidarium behind, your body still tingling with the coolness of the water, you step into another part of the bathhouse. Here, the air feels different again, not hot, not cold, but pleasantly temperate. You are no longer surrounded by steam or the shock of chill water. Instead, this is a space for lingering, for being among others, for the rhythm of daily life. The Roman baths were never simply about cleansing the body. They were as much about the mind, the spirit, and perhaps most importantly, the community. Within these walls, the boundaries of social rank blurred. Senators, merchants, soldiers, freedmen, and sometimes even slaves all passed through the same cycle of chambers. The wealthy might enter with attendants carrying oils and towels, the poor with only their bodies and a small fee for admission. But once inside, all were enveloped by the same stone, the same water, the same air. The spaces surrounding the core bathing rooms reflect this communal purpose. Wide halls open up, their floors inlaid with mosaics depicting mythological figures, sea creatures, or geometric patterns. Columns support lofty ceilings, giving the rooms a sense of spaciousness. Light filters in from clerestory windows, softened by drifting dust, casting golden rays across the marble surfaces. Benches of stone or wood line the walls, providing places for people to sit, converse, or simply rest after their immersion. You pause for a moment, letting your eyes wander. The chamber is alive with quiet activity. A group of men sit together on a bench, speaking in measured tones, perhaps discussing business, perhaps politics. Their gestures are calm, their voices low, but every so often, a ripple of laughter breaks the surface. Nearby, two older citizens lean upon their walking sticks, deep in conversation, their heads close together as though sharing a secret of years past. Across the hall, a younger man sits alone, eyes half closed, perhaps lost in thought or simply enjoying the atmosphere. Not far from him, a pair of children chase one another in a small game, their footsteps echoing briefly against the stone before a watchful parent calls them back. The social heart of the baths was not limited to idle talk. It was a place where deals were struck, alliances formed, news exchanged. In a society without printed newspapers or electronic communication, The baths served as a vital network of information. A man could enter the thermae uncertain of the insidious gossip and leave with a dozen new stories, some true, others exaggerated, all woven into the fabric of communal knowledge. You listen as conversations drift by, fragments of words carried on the air. One voice speaks of a shipment arriving at the docks, another of a recent debate in the forum, another still of a chariot race yet to be run. Each snippet is like a thread, and together they weave a tapestry of civic life. But not all talk was of politics or trade. Philosophy too found its place here. In some corners of the bathhouse, men gathered to discuss questions of virtue, justice, and the nature of the cosmos. The baths offered the ideal setting, bodies cleansed and relaxed, minds unburdened by immediate labor, space enough for thought to stretch and words to flow. The philosopher Seneca himself noted the paradox, that such profound discussions might occur in a place filled with chatter, laughter, and splashing water. Yet perhaps it was precisely this mixture of noise and calm, of body and mind, that made the baths fertile ground for ideas. You walk slowly through the hall, noticing how the architecture encourages gathering. Niches along the walls hold statues of gods, heroes, and emperors, reminders of Rome's divine and civic order. Between these niches, benches invite groups to settle together. The sound of voices echoes gently, never harshly, softened by the open space. In one corner, a small shop has set up a cellar of unguents and perfumes. Tiny glass vials catch the light, filled with oils scented with myrtle, rose, or saffron. A bather approaches, coins exchanged for a drop of fragrance to rub into his skin before he departs. Another vendor nearby offers simple refreshments, dates, nuts, perhaps a cup of watered wine. The baths were not only a place of cleansing, but of small pleasures, where the senses were indulged as well as restored. You take a seat on one of the marble benches. The stone is cool beneath you, grounding after the water and heat. Around you, the flow of humanity continues. A soldier passes by, his frame sturdy, a towel draped across his shoulder. A scholar follows, his steps measured, a scroll tucked beneath his arm, perhaps on his way to a nearby library or lecture hall within the bath complex. For many of the larger thermae included not only bathing facilities, but also gyms, libraries, and gardens. The bathhouse was a miniature city, a self-contained world of leisure and learning. From your seat, you notice a doorway leading outward into a colonnaded courtyard. Through it, shafts of sunlight fall across the floor, and the sound of birds drifts in faintly from outside. Beyond that doorway lies the palestra, the exercise ground where men train in wrestling, ball games, or running. There, bodies find vigor before they return to the cycle of bathing. Here, within the social halls, bodies rest while minds engage. A smell of oil drifts faintly through the chamber, mingling with the mineral tongue of whetstone and the sweetness of dried fruit from a vendor's basket. It is a layered scent, rich but never overwhelming, familiar to anyone who frequents the thermae. As you sit, your own body begins to settle into stillness. The warmth of the baths lingers within you, softened now by the cool of the frigidarium, steadied by the calm of this hall. You feel neither overheated nor chilled, but balanced, comfortable, alert, yet relaxed. A man beside you turns slightly, offering a polite greeting. You exchange a few words, nothing of consequence, but the act itself feels natural, part of the rhythm of the place. Strangers become acquaintances, acquaintances sometimes friends, all within the shared walls of the baths. The Romans had a phrase, balnea omnia alia vendent, the baths sell all other things. It was a recognition that the thermae offered more than washing. They provided health, relaxation, community, and even opportunity. A man could arrive tired and dusty, and leave refreshed, informed, and perhaps with a new connection that might alter the course of his affairs. You lean back slightly against the stone wall, your eyes half closed. The voices blend into a gentle hum, the movement of people, a slow current flowing through the chamber. You are part of this current, part of this shared life. And as the moments pass, you feel the truth of it. The baths are not merely a place. They are an experience, a rhythm, a way of being Ramang. Here, in the heart of the Thermi, life itself seems to slow and expand, inviting both rest and renewal. Soon you will rise again, perhaps to wander toward the palestra, perhaps to return to the apoditerium, perhaps to explore the gardens beyond. But for now, you linger in this space, the social heart of the bath's content, simply to be present within its living pulse. From the quiet hum of conversation within the social halls, you move toward a broad doorway framed by tall stone columns. Beyond it lies the palestra, the open-air exercise grounds of the bath complex. Passing beneath the archway, you emerge into a wide courtyard, and at once the atmosphere changes. The air is fresher here, carrying with it the faint scent of dust, earth, and the greenery of nearby gardens. Overhead, the sky stretches broad and pale, a canvas of light that filters down between the colonnades. The columns themselves encircle the entire courtyard, their fluted shafts standing in orderly rows, creating shaded walkways along the perimeter. Beneath their shelter, spectators, attendants, and those at rest can sit or stroll, while the center of the space remains open, dedicated to the exercises of the body. The palestra was not merely an addition to the baths. It was an essential part of the Roman ideal of health and balance. To the Romans, the body and mind were not separate. Exercise prepared the frame, strengthened the limbs, and ensured that the time spent in the baths would be not only indulgent, but restorative. Here, sweat was earned before it was washed away. You step forward onto the packed earth of the courtyard floor. The ground has been carefully leveled, smoothed, and hardened, suitable for the games and exercises that unfold here daily. Around you, the space is alive with motion. Groups of men engage in different activities, each according to preference, age, or ability. In one corner, two wrestlers circle each other, their bodies oiled to make grappling more difficult, their muscles taut with effort. They lunge, grasp, and twist, their movements quick yet deliberate, the dust rising beneath their feet. Spectators watch from the shaded colonnade, their voices occasionally rising in encouragement or gentle laughter. Wrestling was one of the most ancient of Roman exercises, valued not only for strength, but also for discipline and skill. Nearby, a group of men toss a small ball back and forth, their game light-hearted yet vigorous. This is harpastum, a Roman ball game that demands agility and coordination. The ball, smaller than the one used in the Greek game of the piskairos, is passed swiftly, with players darting to intercept, block, or retrieve it. Shouts rise as one man makes a quick feint, another responds, and the ball changes hands once again. The play continues in bursts of energy, followed by pauses of laughter and breath. Others prefer simpler exercises. Some jog slowly around the edge of the courtyard, their pace steady, their movements rhythmic. A few practice jumping, their bodies springing from the ground in measured arcs, landing with balance upon the packed earth. Still others train with lightweight stone or metal implements gripped in the hands, lifted in repetition to strengthen arms and shoulders. You notice a man practicing with a discus. He stands poised, the circular stone resting in his palm. With a measured turn of the body, he winds, pivots, and releases. The discus sails through the air, glinting briefly in the sunlight before falling to the ground with a muted thud. He walks to retrieve it, dust clinging faintly to his skin, and then repeats the motion, again and again, honing strength and precision. There is no single rhythm to the palestra. Instead, it is a mosaic of movement wrestling, running, leaping, throwing, playing all unfolding at once, blending into a steady chorus of exertion. The sounds of grunts, laughter, thuds, and calls mingle with the natural sounds of the courtyard, the rustle of leaves in a breeze, The distant cooing of pigeons perched upon the colonnade roof, the measured footsteps of attendants moving along the shaded edges. As you walk slowly around the perimeter, you notice the details that support this world of exercise. Niches in the colonnade hold jars of oil for anointing the body before or after exertion. Attendants stand ready with Strigel's curved metal scrapers used to remove sweat, oil, and dust from the skin. This ritual of scraping, though simple, was central to Roman hygiene. A bather might finish his exercise, call for an attendant, and stand quietly as the Strigil passed over his arms, chest, and back, removing the traces of labor. Only after this cleansing would he return to the bathing chambers, prepared to enter the tepidarium or caldarium once more. Children, too, sometimes found their place in the palestra. Their games were less structured, their movements freer, but still the environment offered them a chance to run, leap, and play. For the Romans believed that physical training began young, shaping not only the body, but also the character. To sweat in the palestra was to follow in the path of ancestors who valued endurance, courage, and discipline. You take a seat on the low stone bench beneath the colonnade. From here, the scene spreads out before you. The wrestlers locked in their contest, the players darting after the ball, the discus sailing briefly against the sky. The sun warms the courtyard, but the shade where you sit is cool, comfortable, balanced. A jug of water rests nearby, and now and then a participant pauses to drink, wiping his brow with the back of his hand before returning to the activity. The palestra was not only for the elite. While the wealthy might arrive with attendants and fine oils, ordinary citizens also took their place here. Exercise was considered a part of daily life, as natural as eating or speaking. To neglect, it was to neglect oneself. In this way, the palestra reflected the same democratic spirit as the baths themselves. It was a place where men of different ranks could share the same ground, striving side by side in the games of the body. As the activity continues, you find your thoughts drifting to the philosophy behind it. The Romans inherited much of their attitude toward exercise from the Greeks, who had long linked gymnastics with education, training both body and mind together. Yet the Romans gave it their own character, more practical, more tied to discipline and readiness. For them, exercise was preparation, not only for health, but also for service, whether in the army, in civic duty, or in the endurance of daily life. The palestra embodies this balance. It is not a battlefield, nor a school, but something in between. It is a place where the body is tested gently, regularly, rhythmically, where strength is built not in great feats, but in steady practice. The dust, the sweat, the shouts, all these are part of the ritual that complements the cleansing waters within the thermae. After some time, you rise from the bench and walk once more along the shaded colonnade. The columns rise on either side, their surfaces cool to the touch, their capitals carved with acanthus leaves. Between them, glimpses of sky and movement frame each view like a painting. A wrestler pinned to the ground, a ball caught mid-flight, a runner's foot striking the earth. At one end of the courtyard, a small shrine stands, dedicated perhaps to Hercules, the patron of strength, or to Hermes, the guide of athletes. A garland of leaves adorns the statue, a simple offering left by a grateful bather. Religion and daily life blend easily here. To honor the gods of strength is to honor the exercises themselves. Gradually, as the sun moves higher, the energy of the palestra begins to shift. Some men tire and withdraw to the shade, their bodies glistening with sweat. Attendants scrape them clean with strigils, collecting the mixture of oil and dust into shallow basins. Others still play or train, but the rhythm slows, less intense than before. For many, this marks the time to return inward, to the cycle of baths that awaits beyond the colonnade. You pause once more at the threshold. Behind you, the palestra remains alive with motion, but ahead lies the calm of the tepidarium, the heat of the caldarium, or perhaps the cool stillness of the frigidarium. The Romans moved easily between these spaces, letting exertion and rest, heat and cold, body and mind, all form part of a single balanced experience. For now, you take one last look at the courtyard. The wrestlers bow to one another, their contest ended. The ball game dissolves in laughter as the players drift apart. The discus thrower retrieves his stone one final time, then sets it aside. Slowly, the courtyard quiets, its energy dispersing into the shade of the colonnades. You step back through the archway, leaving the exercise grounds behind. The air shifts again, cooler, shaded, carrying with it the promise of water, marble, and the calm spaces that await. The palestra has done its work. Your body is awake, your senses sharpened, your mind prepared for the next chapter of the Roman bathing ritual. From the exercise grounds, your body carries the faint dust of the palestra, a light sheen of sweat across the skin, and the pleasant ache of movement in the muscles. You step once more through a shaded doorway, back into the marble corridors of the bath complex. Ahead lies another chamber one, not always present in every set of thermi, but when included, it holds its own special place in the cycle of purification. It is the sudatorium, the sweating room. The name itself comes from the Latin verb sudare, meaning to sweat. This space is devoted entirely to that act, using steam and heat not for bathing, but for purging the body of impurities through perspiration. You approach the threshold. The doorway is low and narrow, designed deliberately so that less of the steam escapes when the chamber is in use. Beyond it, the room is dim, lit only by a few small lamps or narrow vents that admit light but not much air. You step inside, and immediately the change is striking. The air is thick, almost heavy. Warmth presses gently but insistently against your skin. The difference from the caldorium is clear. Where that room radiated heat through braziers and hot water basins, here the atmosphere itself is saturated with vapor. Moisture clings to every breath. It is as though you have entered a cloud enclosed within walls. The architecture of the sudatorium is designed for this effect. The walls are often lined with smooth plaster or marble, materials that resist moisture while amplifying the sensation of heat. The floor, like that of other hot rooms, may be raised upon pylai, small stacks of bricks forming the hypocaust system beneath. Through these hollow spaces, hot air circulates from a furnace, warming the floor and the lower parts of the walls. Above, narrow vents release jets of steam into the chamber, filling it with mist until every surface glistens with condensation. You sit upon a low bench built along the wall. The stone beneath you is warm, almost soft in its heat. Droplets bead on your skin within moments, forming tiny rivulets that trace their way downward. The air is rich with moisture, each breath drawing warmth deep into the chest. Other bathers sit nearby, their outlines softened by the haze. Some lean forward, resting elbows on knees, heads bowed as they sweat quietly. Others recline, eyes closed, their breathing slow and deliberate. Voices, when they are heard, are hushed. The sudatorium is not a place of conversation or social exchange, but of bodily release. It is a chamber for silence, for surrendering to the natural function of the body. You notice how the steam transforms the space. Surfaces glisten. Walls seem to shimmer faintly. The outlines of statues or niches blur in the mist, giving the room an otherworldly quality. The Romans often compared such environments to the domains of the gods, Neptune of the waters, or Pluto of the underworld, because the air itself felt different from ordinary life. The purpose of the sudatorium was both practical and philosophical. Perspiration was considered a means of cleansing not only the skin, but the inner body. To sweat was to purge, to release excess humors, to restore balance within. Physicians of antiquity often recommended sweating as a treatment for ailments ranging from fevers to indigestion. As you sit, sweat begins to roll more freely down your arms, your chest, your brow. it is not an unpleasant sensation. Instead, it is oddly soothing, as though the body itself is unburdening. Each droplet carries with it a sense of release, leaving behind a calm that grows with each passing moment. Attendants move quietly through the mist, offering assistance where needed. One carries a bronze vessel of water, sprinkling it lightly upon the heated floor to raise more steam. Another carries strigils, ready for those who wish to scrape away the mixture of sweat and oil from their skin. The curved metal glides gently along the body, leaving the skin fresh, free of moisture, smooth. You imagine how different the experience must feel for each bather. A soldier, weary from campaign, might find the sudatorium a place where the dust and strain of marching finally leave his body. A merchant, carrying the stress of negotiations, might feel his tensions dissolve in the haze. An older man, joints stiff with age, might find relief in the deep warmth that seeps into his limbs. For each, the chamber provides something personal, even while they share the same space. Your attention drifts to the sounds within the sudatorium. They are subdued, softened by the thickness of the air. The faint hiss of steam escaping from a vent. The slow drip of condensation falling from the ceiling. The occasional scrape of a strigil, the rustle of cloth, the quiet exhalation of a long breath. It is a symphony of small, steady sounds, all blending into the rhythm of sweating and release. The heat deepens gradually. Unlike the shock of the caldarium or the frigidarium, the sudatorium works slowly, steadily. The longer you sit, the more complete the sensation becomes. Muscles soften, breathing slows, thoughts quiet. The body enters a kind of trance, lulled by the constancy of the environment. Some Romans preferred to spend only a few minutes here, enough to induce sweat before moving on. Others lingered, remaining until their bodies were drenched, convinced that the longer the stay, the greater the purification. Physicians often cautioned moderation, reminding bathers that excessive sweating could weaken as much as it healed. But moderation, too, was a Roman virtue, one that found expression in how each person used the baths. Eventually, you decide it is time to rise. Standing slowly, you feel the weight of moisture upon your skin, droplets falling from your arms and shoulders. You step toward the doorway, where the air grows lighter, less dense. With each pace, the mist recedes until you pass once more into the marble corridors beyond. Here, attendants wait with strigils and towels. You allow the curved bronze to pass over your skin, scraping away the mixture of sweat and oil. The sensation is cooling, refreshing, as though a new layer of the body has been revealed. Once finished, you feel lighter, cleaner, renewed. The sudatorium has done its work. You have sweated freely, purged the body, quieted the mind. Now you are ready to continue the cycle, to move either back into the tepidarum, for balance, into the frigidarium for a final cooling plunge, or perhaps into the social halls once more, to rejoin the gentle hum of conversation. You pause in the corridor, drawing a long, clear breath of air. The mist no longer surrounds you, but its effects remain. Within your chest, your lungs feel expanded, open. Upon your skin, there is a clarity, a freshness, as though you have shed something unnecessary. The sudatorium, though just one chamber among many, has reminded you of a truth the Romans held close, that health is not a single act, but a cycle. Heat and cold, water and air, exertion and rest all must play their part. To sweat is as essential as to wash, as natural as to breathe. Within these walls, the heart of sweating becomes not discomfort, but renewal. And with that renewal, you turn slowly toward the next part of the bathhouse, your footsteps echoing once more across marble floors, carrying you deeper into the Roman rhythm of cleansing and community. When you leave the heat of the sudatorium behind, you might expect the baths to end there, the cycle complete. But the great Roman thermae were more than a sequence of water-filled chambers. They were miniature cities in their own right, self-contained worlds designed not only for cleansing the body, but for sustaining the mind and refreshing the spirit. You walk down a wide corridor paved with smooth stone. The air feels different, here neither heavy with steam nor cool with recent immersion. It is open, gentle, with the faint suggestion of moving air, as though you are drawing closer to the outdoors. The sound of your footsteps shifts too. Instead of echoing in enclosed marble chambers, it scatters lightly, as if the space ahead is broader, less confined. Soon you pass under a colonnade, and the world opens. Before you lies a courtyard garden, enclosed by the walls of the bath complex, but open to the sky. The air carries a new freshness, touched by the faint scent of greenery. The floor is no longer only stone, but softened by patches of earth, where shrubs, herbs, and even small trees grow in careful order. Columns run along each side, supporting shaded porticos where people stroll or sit upon benches. Beyond them, open pathways cut through the garden itself, bordered by box hedges and punctuated with fountains that spill water gently into marble basins. Statues of gods, heroes, or emperors rise at intervals, gazing serenely over the cultivated space. The courtyard is a place of stillness after the cycles of heat, sweat, and immersion. You hear no rushing, no splashing, no scraping of strigils. Instead, there is the soft sound of water falling from fountains, the occasional chirp of a bird that has found its way inside, the rustle of fabric as a citizen moves slowly along the walkway. You wander beneath the portico, enjoying the blend of shade and light. The columns cast long lines across the pavement, and the air is cooler here, lifted by faint breezes that drift across the open courtyard. Families gather on benches, children sitting quietly beside parents. A group of older men reclines near one of the fountains, speaking softly, their words punctuated by the rhythm of trickling water. Gardens within the thermae served several purposes. They were places of repose where the body could settle after the stimulation of bathing. They provided air and light, a contrast to the enclosed, steamy chambers inside, and they served as another layer of community, offering space for gentle conversation, quiet companionship, or even solitary reflection. In a society that valued both public life and private thought, these courtyards balanced the two. As you move deeper into the garden, you notice the variety of plants. Laurel shrubs stand neatly trimmed, their glossy leaves catching the sun. Rows of rosemary and thyme release faint fragrance when brushed by passing robes. In one corner, a pomegranate tree spreads its branches, its fruits hanging heavy. The Romans valued not only the beauty of such greenery, but its symbolism. Laurel spoke of victory, rosemary of remembrance, pomegranates of abundance and renewal. The garden was never merely decoration. It was a living language of meaning, woven into the fabric of leisure. Past the garden, another wing of the complex invites exploration. You step inside once more, passing through another colonnade into a quieter interior hall. Here, instead of the splash of fountains, the sound is softer still, the faint crackle of a scroll being unrolled, the murmur of words read quietly. You have entered the library. The great thermae often included libraries as part of their design, recognizing that leisure was not only for the body, but for the mind. These libraries were not vast like the great collections of Alexandria, but they were respectable, with rooms devoted to Greek texts on one side and Latin texts on the other. You walk slowly between the shelves, which are niches built into the walls. Within them, scrolls are stored upright, each labeled at its end for easy recognition. The scent here is different again, not of herbs or oils, but of papyrus, wood, and the faint dust of parchment. It is a dry, papery aroma, softened by the stillness of the room. A few readers sit upon benches or low stools, scrolls spread across their laps. One studies intently, lips moving faintly as he traces the words. Another reclines, half reading, half dreaming, his eyes wandering across the floor mosaic before returning to the lines of text. An attendant moves quietly, replacing one scroll upon its shelf and retrieving another for a waiting reader. You pause before a niche, noticing the titles inscribed upon the ends of several scrolls. Some contain works of philosophy Cicero, Seneca, perhaps Plato translated into Latin. Others hold poetry Virgil, Ovid, Horace verses that might echo in the mind long after the reader departs. Still others are histories, medical treatises, or accounts of distant lands. The library is not immense, but it is sufficient to nourish curiosity, to stir reflection, to extend the leisure of the bathhouse into the realm of the intellect. The combination of garden and library within the baths reveals something important about Roman culture. These were not separate activities, but complementary ones. To walk among plants, to read words written centuries earlier, to bathe in hot or cold water, these were all parts of the same vision of health. The body, the mind, and the spirit were not divided but intertwined. Leisure was not laziness, but cultivation, a means of shaping oneself toward balance and well-being. You leave the library quietly, the sound of your steps softened by the hushed atmosphere, and step once more into the sunlight of the courtyard. For a moment, you stand still, feeling the contrast. The brightness of the sky above, the living green of plants around, the carved stillness of statues, the gentle play of water. In another wing of the complex, you glimpse yet more spaces of leisure. There are lecture halls where philosophers speak to small groups, debating questions of virtue or the cosmos. There are shaded porticos where men stroll together, speaking of politics or poetry. There are even small rooms for games tables, set for dice, knucklebones, or board games, where chance and strategy meet in quiet competition. Each of these spaces contributes to the same rhythm. Exertion in the palestra, heat in the caldarium, sweat in the sudatorium, coolness in the frigidarium, conversation in the halls, reflection in the library, repose in the garden. It is a cycle not merely of bathing, but of being, where each part supports the others in harmony. You sit for a while upon a bench in the garden, your body still carrying the memory of warmth and steam, your mind now softened by the sight of greenery and the calm of quiet words. Around you, others sit as well, citizens, soldiers, merchants, children all, sharing the same space, not in rivalry or haste, but in ease. The Thermae are often remembered as marvels of engineering, with their hypocausts and aqueducts, their vast chambers and intricate mosaics. But perhaps their greatest marvel is something less tangible, the way they wove together the many strands of Roman life into a single fabric. Water, stone, air, plant, text, conversation all met within these walls, and all found their balance. As the sun begins to lean toward the later hours, shadows lengthen across the garden paths. The murmur of voices continues, steady and unhurried. You feel no need to move quickly, no demand upon your time. Here, within the gardens and libraries of the baths, leisure is its own purpose, as essential as any ritual of cleansing. And so you linger, letting the minutes stretch, allowing the atmosphere of stillness and harmony to seep into you, as surely as the heat and water did earlier. The cycle of the bathhouse did not end with water or with leisure among gardens and scrolls. For many visitors, the final stop was something more tangible, more ordinary, and perhaps more comforting: food. The Thermae were not only places to wash and relax, they were also magnets of daily life. Where crowds gathered, vendors followed. Where time stretched long, appetites inevitably awakened. And so, around the fringes of every major bath complex, a small economy thrived, a quiet, steady rhythm of sellers and buyers, of stalls and snacks, of refreshment taken after the rituals of bathing. You step once more beneath the colonnade, leaving behind the courtyard garden. The air shifts again. You smell it before you see it, the faint scent of bread, of oil warmed by fire, of herbs sprinkled across steaming dishes. It is not the perfume of oils or the sharp tongue of steam. It is the ordinary, homely scent of cooking, Ahead, the hall opens into a broad area edged with small stalls and counters. These are tabernae, little shops set into the very walls of the complex or gathered nearby in surrounding streets. Some are simple, offering only bread and olives. Others are more elaborate, with clay amphorae of wine leaning against their walls and platters of prepared food laid out for customers to see. The voices here are livelier than in the library or garden. Patrons speak with stall holders, coins clink against counters, laughter rises where friends gather with cups of drink in hand. It is not noisy in a jarring way. It is lively in the way a marketplace is, filled with the ordinary music of people sustaining themselves. You pause before one stall where a vendor is slicing bread. The loaves are round, baked earlier in the day, their crusts darkened by the oven's fire. He serves them with bowls of olives, green and black, glistening with oil. Another stall nearby offers cheese, soft and crumbly, served in little portions upon wooden boards. The smell is rich, a reminder that the Roman bath was never far removed from the rhythms of agriculture and the countryside. Further along, another vendor ladles out portions of pulse, the Roman porridge made from grains. It is simple fare, often flavored with herbs or bits of vegetables, sometimes sweetened with honey. Today it is served warm, its steam rising into the evening air. Those who wish for more variety find sausages sizzling over a small brazier, or fish grilled and seasoned with garum, the pungent fermented sauce beloved across the empire. The food is not luxurious in the way of a senator's banquet, but it is satisfying, practical, nourishing. It belongs to the rhythm of daily life, not the spectacle of feasting. In this way, it completes the cycle of the baths, grounding the lofty architecture, the philosophical libraries, and the ritual of steam in something humble and familiar. The taste of bread, the sip of wine, the sharing of food among companions. You take a place upon a low bench near one of the stalls. Others sit nearby, some still damp from the baths, their hair glistening with oil. A group of young men laughs over cups of diluted wine, their gestures animated as they recall moments from the palestra earlier in the day. An older couple sits quietly, breaking bread together, speaking little, but sharing the comfort of food and company. Children tug at their parents' robes, eager for a sweet cake or honeyed fig from another stall nearby. The air here is warmer, not with steam, but with the heat of cooking fires. The glow of oil lamps spreads across the stalls, their flames flickering against amphorae and clay cups. The smells mingle bread, cheese, wine, herbs, until the entire hall feels like a tapestry woven from taste and scent. The Romans understood the value of refreshment. To them, eating and drinking after the baths was not an afterthought, but a natural extension of the process. Bathing cleansed the skin, eased the muscles, and opened the pores. Food and drink completed the experience by filling the body once more with warmth and sustenance. It was a cycle of emptying and replenishing, of shedding what was stale and taking in what was fresh. Some patrons took their meals lightly here, then went home to dine more fully. Others made the bath complex their evening, lingering long among the stalls until the day drew to a close. For those who could not afford banquets or private feasts, these humble meals in the shadow of marble halls were a taste of shared abundance. You wander slowly among the stalls, observing without hurry. At one counter, wine is poured from a tall amphora into clay cups. It is not drunk neat, but mixed with water, sometimes cooled with snow in wealthier cities, sometimes warmed over embers in winter. The vendor stirs with a long-handled ladle, the liquid swirling before it is served. The color is deep, rich, catching the lamplight as it sloshes gently in each cup. Nearby, another vendor tends to a brazier where chestnuts roast. Their shells crackle softly as they split, releasing a sweet, earthy aroma. He scoops them into small pouches made from scraps of parchment, handing them to waiting customers who eat them slowly. blowing upon the hot kernels before biting. The variety is wide, but the mood is the same everywhere. Calm satisfaction, unhurried and steady. There is no rush here, no sense of urgency. The baths have softened the day's edges, and now the food hall completes that work, wrapping the evening in a blanket of contentment. You find yourself pausing again at the center of the space, where the air carries the overlapping scents of bread, herbs, and roasted nuts. It is not overwhelming, but layered like the baths themselves, each element adding its note to the whole. In this moment, it becomes clear that the Thermae were not only monuments of stone and engineering. They were also ecosystems, living centers of human life. Every need was anticipated. The cleansing of the body, the stimulation of the mind, the refreshment of the spirit, the nourishment of hunger. The baths were not an escape from daily life, but its fullest expression, a place where all its strands were drawn together in harmony. As the evening deepens, the stalls begin to quiet. Some vendors close their shutters, tying cloths across their counters. Others linger, serving the last customers before extinguishing their lamps. The laughter softens, the conversations grow fewer. People rise from their benches, gather their belongings, and drift slowly toward the exits. You walk once more beneath the colonnade, leaving behind the glow of lamps and the scent of food. The stone floor cools beneath your feet. Ahead, the great doors of the Thermae stand open, leading out toward the streets of the city. The sky is dark now, the stars faintly visible above the rooftops. The sounds of the bathhouse fade behind you, replaced by the quieter murmur of Rome at night. You pause at the threshold, looking back once more. Within those walls lies a world complete. The heat of the caldarium, the cool plunge of the frigidarium, the stillness of the garden, the murmur of the library, the laughter of the food stalls. Each chamber, each courtyard, each stall contributes to a whole that is more than the sum of its parts. The Thermae are not simply baths. They are a city in miniature, a rhythm of life, a sanctuary of balance. And so you step out into the Roman night, carrying with you the warmth of water, the quiet of libraries, the freshness of gardens, and the comfort of food. The day has closed, the body is clean, the spirit is light, and the mind drifts toward rest. The Roman baths have done their work, and with that, the story, too, comes gently to its close.